All righty. Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee, One Government Center, Fall River, Mass. 02722. March 6th. Oh, that's fine. March 6th. Let's see, open meeting laws. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such a recording or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. We'll have a roll call to order. Paul Machado.
Present.
Kristen Oliveira.
Present.
Victor Ferris.
Present.
Alex Sylvia.
Here, present.
John Ferreira.
Present.
Carolyn Auburn.
Present.
So tonight's meeting we have in present on Zoom is John Brandt, Kristen Oliveira, Victor Ferris, Alex Sylvia, John Ferreira, Carolyn Auburn. Missing are 2 open seats we have for the mayor appointment and housing authority. Next on the agenda, this meeting will be available for viewing under video on demand, channel 18. Citizen input is due by the 19th. COVID-19 submitted to Sandy Dennis no later than the 22nd. Next, we'll have nominations for Community Preservation Committee Chair. Do we have any nominations for a chairman?
I nominate John Brandt for chair.
I'll second.
Second. We'll do a roll call vote. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on that. I'll call your name. Kristen Oliveira,
Yes.
Victor Ferris,
Yes.
Alex Sylvia,
Yes.
John Ferrer,
Yes.
Carolyn Auburn.
Yes.
Okay, I accept the
You're muted.
You're mute, John.
okay. Next, we need a nomination for vice chair.
I
Any
nominate Christy Oliveira.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Carolyn Auburn,
Yes.
John Ferreira,
Yes.
Alex Sylvia,
Yes.
Victor Ferris,
Yes.
John Brandt, yes. You accept, Christine?
Yes, I'll accept it.
Okay, so Christine Oliveira will be the new vice chair. Next is the approval minutes, approval of the minute meetings from February 20th, March 2nd.
I make a motion.
February 22nd, sorry.
No, December 9th.
Ninth. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yep, nope, see, sorry, read it backwards. We'll take them separate, December 9th, 2020. Motion to accept.
I make a motion. with-
So motion and a second there.
Yep.
Roll call vote. Christine Oliveira,
Yes.
Victor Ferris,
Yes.
Alex Sylvia.
For my time on the board, so I'll vote present.
Yeah. John Ferreira.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have,
John, we're forgetting Paul Machado in these votes. I just,
I'm
Paul's here and we're forgetting him.
sorry about that, Paul. I didn't have. Paul Machado,
Yes, and for the record, I voted yes for the chair and
okay.
vice chair.
Sorry, I had the names written down. I don't know how I spaced yours out there. My fault. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes, January 12th?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for January 12th, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Christine Oliveira,
Yes.
Victor Ferris,
Yes,
Alex Sylvia.
Present.
Oh, you weren't here, I'm done yet, so excuse me there. John Ferreira,
Yes.
Paul Machado.
Yes.
And
Okay.
John, Caroline can vote present if she wants to, but do a roll call for her.
For, on the vote? She-
Caroline, she can
Was
vote
she-
present if she wants.
Oh, she was at the meeting for that date?
No, but she can vote present, like
Okay,
Alex did.
okay, Caroline Auburn
Present.
and Alex Sylvia.
Present.
Okay. Approval of the minutes for February 22nd. Can I have
Make
a
a motion,
motion?
we approve the minutes.
Second?
second,
Okay. Roll call vote. Christine Oliveira,
Yes.
Victor Ferris,
yes,
Alex Sylvia,
Yes.
John Ferreira,
Yes.
Carolyn Auburn,
Yes.
Paul Machado.
That's the meeting I missed, so I'll vote present on that.
Okay. Alrighty. First on the list is project would be the Maritime Museum. I think present will be Christopher Nardi. Project is for installation of a AVAC system. Request is for $74,800. In the past, they have had from CPC $135,000 for elevator installation and $47,000 for elevator installation. If they are here, would like to explain their project. Chris, can you unmute them, Alex?
I believe I'm unmuted now, right?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. The Maritime Museum is now, for those who don't know, is now one in the same with USS Massachusetts Memorial Committee, just to make that clear. This is a three-phase project of which we have previously been supported by the CPC for the first phase, which was the design of a new electrical system to eventually support an HVAC system. We're also supported for the installation of the electrical system designed in phase one. This application is to produce a design and construction bidding documents for the actual HVAC system. An update on the electrical system. The installation of the electrical system was a bit delayed because of the COVID-19 crisis. You were required to rebid or ask all three original bidders to rebid because their prices had changed. In fact, one of them, I believe, well, I don't believe, one of them did drop out of the bidding process, and we've since solicited another. So that is underway, the actual implementation of phase two. And again, this application is to produce construction documents that can be put out to bid for an HVAC system for that building.
Hi, Chris. This is Rodney Jocks from William Stock Architects. I just am working. We're working with Chris at the Maritime Museum. I apologize we couldn't be there in person or on video this evening. But if there's any questions, I may also be able to assist.
Okay. We'll open it up now to any board members that have any questions. The easiest, I'll just go down by the names. That way, if we won't forget anybody. Kristen, do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, Victor? No. Okay, Alex, Sylvia, any questions?
Yeah, I was wondering at what phase the previous project to upgrade the electrical grid was currently in, and if you had an estimated time of completion.
So The bids for that project were due last week. We received them. They're under review now. We expect to award hopefully within the next week or so. That process includes trying to vet out a schedule with the contractor. These days, I don't mean to keep repeating myself. I'm sure you've heard it over and over again, but these days things are still up in the air regarding how quickly we can get materials and things like that due to COVID. I anticipate the project to take no more than 60 days. As a matter of fact, I would like it to be completed earlier than that, but I'll be on the conservative side and say it'll take 60 days. Once a contractor is selected and awarded, it's just kind of figuring out the start date. So, let's say someone can start in 3 weeks. That's towards the end of March. We should be done by Memorial Day.
John Ferrer, any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, Caroline, any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay, Paul Machado, any questions?
Yes, I'd ask Mr. Nadi, in a normal year, about how many visitors does the Marine Museum receive?
I honestly don't have that number in front of me. We do have what we have now is, and I don't even have the historic numbers ready to give to you, but normally when people, the way it is now, when people visit the ship, they are given the opportunity, or their ticket includes the option to go down the street to the Maritime Museum, take advantage of that exhibit there, or those exhibits there. So to break that out between those who take advantage of the option and those who come through the front door of our gift shop would be difficult at the moment. But I can, if you need to, I can come up with some historical figures for when it was a separate ticket.
Okay, how about the visitors to the Battleship? Do you have an estimate as to how many people visit the Battleship in a year?
In the last few years, of course, excluding the past year, it's about 70 to 80,000
Per year?
per year.
Wow. Thank you.
If there's no other further questions, we'll move on to this. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rodney. You can exit the meeting if you want, or stay on and watch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Next on the list is Fall River Historical Society. Mike Martin, the curator, is going to be here. He's under historic preservation for installation of a new PVC roof replacement of wood pilaster, brackets, repainting, and wood molding and third floor cupola. He's requesting $389,943. In the past, which all projects are finished, he did $52,700 for restoration of a wood trim and slate roof. Then he $63,640 for repair fence and paint the annex building. So Mike, if you'd like to explain your project there.
Well, sure. Thank you for this opportunity. Also, Mike Keene is here, so if anyone has any questions that I cannot answer, hopefully Mike will be able to do that. So certainly, as you mentioned, the application is the largest amount the Historical Society has ever applied for. I think as many people know, the Historical Society is the oldest organization in the city, dedicated really to preserving artifacts pertaining to the history of Fall River. So the building itself is the finest preserved French Second Empire structure in the city. I have to apologize for that damn phone. It's someone else's desk. So it's the finest preserved French Second Empire building in the city. And it houses a fine collection of artifacts pertaining to Fall River's history, without doubt the finest collection extant. So one of our concerns, of course, is that the exterior of the building really must be restored in order to ensure the integrity of the structure, but also to help preserve the collections contained within. So the actual application for 389,943 would be bumped up a bit. It would be 444,943. That includes the master plan that we're currently in the process of completing. That was funded privately, $55,000, funded by a private foundation. The scope of the work is fairly extensive because it includes the restoration of everything above the gutter line. So this would be the removal and replacement of the existing roof system, the cupola restoration, and also the restoration of all the exterior wood components from the gutter line up. Many of them, of course, are original, in remarkable condition in some cases and very deteriorated in others, and that's certainly evidenced by the photographs that we submitted. Really, one of the main concerns for the Historical Society is preserving the integrity of the structure. Of course, currently in this economic climate, it's difficult to keep everything going when we're faced with, a very severe economic climate, and certainly faced with trying to keep the doors open when the museum is currently closed because of COVID. So certainly it's a grant that we're hoping we can secure. There are a lot of reasons for it, but certainly I would be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
No, it looks like a good project, Mike. You just have the one bid that you put in?
I'm sorry?
You just have the one bid that you?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. That looks fine there. We'll open it up to questioning. Christine Oliveira, any questions?
So Michael, the roof replacement, you're replacing it with slate, yes?
No, actually, it would. The existing roof is EPDM, so it's a rubber roof, and that would be replaced. That's the flat portion that does not show, but this also includes the restoration of the original slate on the mansard roof.
Okay, that's what I was referring to. So
70.
you're going to use
Yes.
actual slate. Okay.
Yes, it would include the original slate, the flashing, and damaged wood components around the windows.
Okay.
Okay. Victor? Any questions, Vic?
Not right now.
Okay. Alex, Sylvia, any questions?
Not so much a question, but maybe just a general notice to all applicants, kind of just based off of our past training with Stuart last meeting, that in order to receive funds from the CPC, that the project start date has to be after the funds have been received, and the deed restriction has to be filed if it's necessary. Might be important for projects with historic preservation.
Yes. All righty. John Ferrer, any questions?
Yes, I have a couple. I know, I think Alex was also referring to the Maritime Museum was stating that they were going to stop by the end of the month, which is a little before funding starts. But back on the historical.
I think that was for last year's funding, John.
For last year's funding starting in mid-March on that hotel. On these repairs here at the historical site, it's a pretty extensive restoration. Also, the membrane's also going to cover the ledge as well, right, Mike?
No, when you say the ledge, I'm assuming that's the above the bracket line, the wide gutter.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And hopefully they're going to rectify some of that pooling that's starting in there.
Oh, yes, that's all part of the plan to rectify the pooling, and certainly I think you probably saw from the photographs there is one area in particular that's very concerning because it's actually rotted straight through. So that's obviously an area that has to be addressed, but all of that pooling would be addressed as part of this project.
Yeah, because that's definitely a big cause of a lot of the deterioration there.
Yes, and certainly on the flat roof, the top of the structure, there's really no evidence of pooling there, but certainly there are a couple of areas in that flat, wide gutter area that have to be addressed.
And as far as the chimney, they're also going to work on the chimney banding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, all of that would be addressed. Again, the pointing is in remarkably good condition. But all of that area would be addressed as part of this. Basically, everything from that gutter line up.
I was gonna say chimney looks fairly good.
Yeah, it's surprising because it obviously is, original to the structure and takes a beating up there. So
Yeah.
it has survived pretty well.
All
John,
right,
this
thanks,
is
Mike.
John. This is Mike Keane with Civitex Architects.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We are we're the firm that's doing the study right
Mhm.
now for the Historical Society. So one of the things that we did early on is we sent up one of our drones to take a survey of the roof structure. And in addition to the ponding that you referred to earlier, we noticed several fairly sizable punctures in that membrane system, which is more sort of a cause for concern. So it's a combination of several things that are happening with that roof system that we felt that this is really the first project that they should take on.
Is now that one detail that you have on 12, is that just a missing a drain basket, or is that?
Yeah, good catch. That the one on the left, that circle that we did, that's a missing drain basket. In fact, we couldn't find any drain baskets, which is an issue for clogging of the downspouts. But the one that you see in the middle or the center, that larger circle is a puncture in the PDM.
I
So
was gonna
that's,
say, it looks like just a hole.
yeah, that it
Yes.
doesn't look good.
No.
So it doesn't look too bad from the ground, but once you send, once we sent the drone up there, there's some issues, missing fascia, so there's definitely some concern here.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of detail work that's time consuming. All right, I have no further questions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Caroline, any questions?
Since I'm an employee of the Historical Society, I'm going to decline from any of the discussions.
Okay. Paul Machado, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Martins, I'm going to ask you the same question about the volume of visitors that the Historical Society gets in
Sure.
normal years, not
Sure. So obviously we've been closed the entire year. So an average year for us is somewhere between 3,500 to 5,000 visitors that are admissions, paid admissions for people who come in. Now, what we do during the holiday season, which is our busiest time of the year, is as a public service, we forfeit our admission fee so that anyone can come in regardless of finances. And so the Historical Society traditionally has done that really as a gift back to the city. It's really difficult to come up with a really accurate number as to the number of people who come through. Although we do ticket them, you get a lot of repeat people. And I'll be honest, there are times on the weekend where it's so busy that people do come through who don't receive a ticket simply because it's too busy to give them one. But we know we average somewhere between 10 to 12,000 people during a 6-week period during the holiday season. Well, that doesn't include events on the grounds. So events on the grounds, concerts, for example, an average concert for us is anywhere from 350 to 550 people. And then there are theatrical performances usually bring in 100 and 125. So, when you combine it, the numbers would be considerably higher than that. But a great deal of what we do, especially on the grounds, is done free of charge. So it's really difficult to come up with accurate numbers. I wouldn't even attempt to because I'd be lying to you. So, but the numbers are significant, certainly.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All righty. No further questions. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for the
You can
opportunity.
stay and watch the meeting or you can exit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is the Madison Firehouse, Charlie Jacobs. And under historic, requesting $197,300 for replacement of structural frame, reconstruction of facial, gutters, masonry work, and repointing. Last year, we awarded them $92.50 for architectural fees and $22,000 for masonry work, which he hasn't started yet, but I think that's in the plans for this summer. So Charlie, if you'd like to.
Howdy. Yeah, you got it all right down there. The fascia board on the east side is where we got the problem. The rafter tails are rotted off back probably 2.5 feet. And then down, coming down on the corner where the bigger timber is, which is probably the 8 by 14, it sits on top of the plate. It's rotten there too. And that is caused the temporary fascia board or the aluminum that I put up 25 years ago. And the water's been seeping in gradually. And we've got probably, let me think a second. Yeah, well, anyway, if you've looked at the plan that the architect drew, it's about a 6 by 8 spot where the bricks are actually got to be taken off and re-put on. And the rest of it, the other 3 sides, there's no masonry work necessarily, but that's where the gutters and downspouts will go. That is the information that I think I can get started with.
Well, we do need a repoint though. A lot of that
Yeah.
part of the building too. Yeah.
If I could add to what
ahead,
Charlie
Michael.
had to say, this is Mike Keene with Civitex Architects. We had performed a study for the Jacobsons on the building, and we talked about several different projects we could look at to undertake. And the one that we felt was the most in need of work is the hayloft, which is, as Charlie just mentioned, the east elevation in particular with the deteriorated fascia board, which is separated from the building. And as Charlie mentioned, it's pulled away so much that it's allowed water infiltration to come into the building, and it has affected the roof framing system. And it's led to some wood rot, as well as to deterioration of the exterior masonry wall. And you can see it hopefully in the photographs that we put together, that especially at the top, immediately below the fascia board, some of that brick masonry is pulling away from the building. So part of the work would be not just to restore or replace the fascia board, but also gutters and downspouts, and also masonry repointing for really what amounts to the 3 elevations of that hayloft. So the east, west, and south elevation of the hayloft.
You got some pretty good pictures too of the deterioration of them rafter tails.
Yeah,
that
this
are
is the
older.
is the original grapple hook at the second floor of the hayloft. And we were out there on one of the rainy days, one of our several site visits. We purposely went out there where it's raining, and you can see the water traveling into the building in several areas.
Okay.
Right, which drips on the floor and makes that kind of unsafe to even stand on right up on the doors on the inside of the hayloft.
Correct.
I see you have a bid in, and that's pretty frequent. The bid's probably still within the guideline. I mean, got that last year, right? The bid, so that should still be good. And they're gonna follow the Secretary of Interior standards when repointing and the
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, everything that we do, John, as you know, in our work, with the amount of historic preservation work that we do, it will be following the Secretary of Interior's standards, and all of that will be noted not just in our drawings, but also in our specifications in terms of how the project is to be executed. So, yes, you're correct.
on last year's award that you got, when do you anticipate to start that work?
We've already begun as far as the design work of it, and we're looking to put that out to bid this spring, and hopefully start underway construction for the summertime.
All right.
And that's the west elevation that they were awarded funding for.
Alrighty. Well, we can open this up to board members for questions. Christine, any questions?
Yeah, just one. So the work that still has to be done from last year, you said you're gonna be starting it like spring, summer. How long do you anticipate that work is going to take before that phase of it is finished?
I probably would anticipate within 3 months or so. It's a very, as mentioned earlier, it's a very, very difficult climate right now. And I've never seen anything like this in, my, 20 some years of practicing as an architect. Everything from contractor availability to material prices and availability. It's very difficult to make a commitment to certain things, especially when you're talking about a specialized area such as historic preservation. So it's difficult to say. Normal times, I would say within 3 to 4 months.
And a couple of the bids that we did get, Michael, as you know, they were very, very little money, but I could smell liquor on their breath. I think they came from the bar room to give me the bid, but it didn't impress me at all. The one that we've had out there and talked to knows what's going on, and it's very assuring that my building might live longer if I do it correctly.
Right.
All righty. Vic, any questions?
That number 7, does that go around the whole, that picture number 7, is that around the whole thing or just in that section there?
I'm sorry, Victor.
On picture 7?
Yeah.
Photograph 7?
Yeah.
I think you're referring to the west elevation. It's it's straight. That's correct.
Okay. So they'll be done at the same time as the rest of it.
I don't know how the money's going on that. How far we will be able to get with the square footage that's there. So time will tell, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to talk more with the guy that's gonna have the staging up there and be able to pinpoint to us.
All right, thank you.
Alex, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. John Ferrera, any questions?
Just a couple. No, I'm sure we're going to, what are your plans to address first? The beams, and the roof trusses, I would assume, for structural integrity?
Yeah, yes.
We don't know if the cash is going to go through, but I know, like Victor said, I believe it was Victor, in 7, we got the clapboard with just that downspout sitting there. And I know that's probably creating some havoc right there.
Yeah, John, it's Mike. So definitely the structure, part of the study that we completed, we did bring in one of our structural engineers as well to evaluate the roof, really the framing system for that roof. So it's definitely going to be the fascia board, the drainage system, and also the structure, whether we need to sister or provide some additional or supplemental framing members is possible. So I think, after that would be the masonry piece of it. I think the masonry is important, but I think it's not as critical as getting the drainage and the building buttoned up first.
Yeah, I agree. The integrity and the drainage is first.
Right.
Because they got to go hand in hand, because if you do the integrity and don't do the drainage, you're just going to have the same problem coming up shortly thereafter with more drainage.
Agreed.
There is substantial rot. I mean, these buildings have been let go. It's too bad, but hopefully we'll get them all rectified. I'm all set. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Caroline, any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Paul Machado, any questions?
No, thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you, Charles, and
You betcha.
Thank you.
all righty, you can join the meeting or you can exit.
Yep. All right, carry on.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next is 56 Water Street, Jeannie Padel. I always say that last name wrong. She has a request for removal and roof replacement. The request is $255,890. So Jeannie, would you like to?
Hi, how are you? It's good to see you all and hope you're all well. Thank you again for the opportunity and approval to get this far and move further with the restoration of the Water Street building. We really appreciate it and are humbled by the several letters of support that we received from community and government people who see, you know, that this is an important part of the historic waterfront. And being hopeful for our future, we are hopeful that we can move forward. We did have Mike Keane do a study, which we were approved for prior to this point here. And he certainly knows a lot more about this than I do. But what I will say is that we have spent over the years multiple thousands of dollars just patching and fixing and patching and fixing and doing the best that we can afford to do. So we appreciate Mike and Ann's help, and I'm hoping that he can take this on from here because he's been doing he's the pro.
Thank you, Jeannie. Michael, you want to take over?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So this structure was originally a 3.5-story structure as part of the Ironworks complex. And part of our study, we've done a whole historical analysis, which we're wrapping up the study piece of it, and we can turn over to you all for review or for your information. So I think the first discussion that we had was to look at the masonry to see if there was any masonry restoration that needed to be done. But the more we got into the study, the roof system itself is really something that concerns us. I don't think we can date it, but it's well beyond 30 years. It's essentially a flat roof system with a bit of a minor pitch that runs from west to east to a gutter system. There's also some downspouts there as well, but it's flat. And it's this substantial ponding on this roof, which is, some of you I'm sure know, the ponding water adds weight to the roof and over time leads to deflection of the roof framing system, which over time could potentially lead to failure over many years. So we were looking at the roof system as the first project that could be taken on for this building. And by that, what we'll be looking at is improving the pitch of the roof, also adding additional insulation to make sure that the roof is code compliant with the current requirements of the energy code, and also looking at a white PVC membrane system, which would be a reflective system. And if you know a bit about sort of the heat island effect, it would help to cool the building as well as the surrounding area, changing it from a dark colored roof system to a white PVC. Plus the PVC would weather better than some of the other systems that we're seeing on these older roofs. So.
I don't see a bid in here for the roof. Do you have one for that?
For all of these projects that we put together estimates based on projects that we are working on currently and have a history of working on. There's a difference between getting a bid and getting an estimate or providing you with an estimate, and there's a vast difference between the two. So with an estimate, you're looking at certain assumptions on the scope and quantity of material and what their costs would be. To obtain a bid from a contractor means that you would have to have a defined scope and also quantified materials. And since we haven't begun the architectural drawings or specifications on this project, as well as the previous two that we talked about, we've provided an estimate based on work that we have ongoing. And we do quite a bit of these types of projects over the years. So I think we feel comfortable with the numbers that we put forth on these three projects.
Okay. We'll open it up to questions. Christine? Any questions, Christine?
No questions at this time.
Okay, Vic? Any questions, Vic?
Sorry, not at this time.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, well, my main question was on the age of the roof, but it sounds like that's still kind of up in the air at 30 plus years.
It's at least 30, Alex.
Thank you.
John Ferrer?
Yeah, Mike, you had stated that you were considering changing the pitch slightly on this because of it being as flat as it is. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So we would have to address the all the the roof drains, the scuppers, and the mechanical units.
Yeah, so good observation. I will add to that is that the edge of the roof, specifically at the west elevation along Water Street, would need to be raised a bit because you're increasing the pitch, but you're also increasing the thickness of the insulation to meet energy code compliance by several inches. So I would also add to that, the mechanical equipment, which I think is going to be fairly easy on this type of a project. If there's a gas line, I think that can be raised fairly easily. But we might also need to do some extensions on the plumbing vents that are penetrating the roof, which is, again, not, we've got about half a dozen roof projects right now that are very sizable. So we do this sort of thing quite a bit. So the roof drains too, there are two on either side of an existing penthouse. The proximity of those roof drains are very close to the penthouse structure. So we're looking at, there's one on the north side and one on the south side. So we're looking at relocating those drains as part of the replacement system. So there's going to be some minor plumbing work just below the roof framing to reconnect those. So that's all been built into the numbers that we put together.
And the curbs as well, obviously they'll have to be adjusted. Now, how high of a how much of a pitch are you thinking of putting on here?
Code requires 1/8 for existing buildings, but we never do less than a quarter inch. That's a 1/4 inch pitch per foot.
Yep. Now, pitching, you're saying from Water Street back. Now, this penthouse, is that in the back as well?
There's a gutter system and downspout system, John, along the east elevation between the Narrows building, that alleyway, the back alleyway. So part of this would be putting in new gutters and new downspouts. So the gutter and downspout system is probably about 2/3 of the building. The remaining third are serviced by these two roof drains that you mentioned earlier. So it's going to be a kind of a combination of different roof drainage systems.
Yeah. So these scuppers are pretty much as a backup around that penthouse.
Correct.
All righty, I'm good. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All righty. Caroline, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Paul Machado, any questions?
No, thank you.
All righty. Well, Jeannie, thank you for coming to tonight's meeting.
Thank you all. Stay well.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
John, you're muted.
You didn't hear any of that. Sorry about that. Next on the agenda is Notre Dame Rectory, Roland and Karen Lagavine, for partial payment of an elevator. They were requesting $100,000. I think Ken Viola's here tonight to explain the project. Can you unmute Ken, Alex? Alex, could you unmute Ken?
Kenny, you got to unmute. Kenny, unmute yourself. Okay, you're all set.
Perfect. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you tonight. So I'm here, as John had indicated, on behalf of Roland and Karen Langevin. They are Fall River natives who own property within the city and have essentially saved the Notre Dame Rectory from the wrecking ball as it pertains to this very historical, significant property. So for those of you aware of the property itself, it was part of the Notre Dame estate, which also included the Notre Dame Church, the Jesus Marie Convent, the Notre Dame School, and the St. Joseph's Orphanage. The church was constructed in 1894, the convent in 1887, the Notre Dame School in 1899, St. Joe's Orphanage in 1892, and the Notre Dame Rectory in 1907. The project itself was designed by a local architect, Louis Deschamps, who was also the architect of record and oversaw the construction of the other Notre Dame Estates property, as well as the St. Anne's Church as a supervising architect for the church. So there's a lot of local historic significance associated with this property, and the property itself has sat in somewhat disrepair for a number of years. The Langevins have purchased the property and they intend to move forward and actually transform and rehab the property so that it can accommodate 14 residential units. The estimated cost of the project is $4,578,704. They are asking for a CPA allocation for $100,000 to offset some of the repairs of the elevator. And I think people may have received some communication earlier where the contractor for the architect has indicated that the budget for the elevator equipment and installation is $190,000. And then if you add in the ancillary components such as the elevator pit foundation, the shaft, steel supports for the elevator rails, the electrical and miscellaneous items, the budget would be approximately $300,000 for an installed and functioning elevator. Like I said earlier, the project will consist of 14 residential units. Of those 14 residential units, we're proposing that 4 units be deed restricted to the extent that they secure the $100,000 from the CPA committee. They will restrict 2 of those units for low and moderate income people. There will also be a deed restriction placed on the property as part of the overall award by the CPC. And there's also 2 additional units from the city that they're seeking funding for in the form of home funds. So those will be offered to individuals at 60% AMI, which is a little bit lower than what the CPC units themselves would actually be reserved for. Clearly, in our opinion, this project meets both historic preservation and community housing. You know, I had the opportunity to review your CPC training video or presentation, like I think it was last week. It was very informative. We think that the project meets categories for funding for as part of the housing as well as the historic preservation. And by virtue of the deed restriction, you're actually acquiring a property interest in the property, so that in the event that the property is ever sold, the CPC would actually be reimbursed for that property, or if the property failed to adhere to the income levels associated with the award itself, the CPC would also be entitled to a reimbursement. So we think that this property is very significant and represents a market rate housing investment in a section of the city that normally does not see these types of investments. You're looking at, most market rate housing taking place along the waterfront as we speak. Although, Tony Cadero has secured CPC funding in the past for a 3rd Street property, which is located behind the post office. And he also moved forward with some other state funding for another market rate housing project on Troy and Pleasant Street. The property owners themselves will be looking, in addition to CPC funding, they've already filed their applications with the National Park Service and Mass Historic for the securement of historic tax credits. Both Part 1s have been submitted and Part 2s are currently under review, and a determination shall be made shortly. In addition, they're going to be seeking some state HDIP tax credits, which is an additional tax credit for the overall development of the project itself. So in terms of the overall funding of the project, they've paid $300,000 for the acquisition of the property, and they'll be putting in some additional personal funds. But as part of their project stack, they would like to be able to include the $100,000 CPC award, some additional home funds, as well as tax credit appropriations from both Mass Historic, federal historic, as well as HDIP tax credit. So I really think this is going to help stabilize this area. I'm hoping that as a result of putting market rate housing at this particular location, the next project we can discuss at some point in the future would be the conversion of the Notre Dame School as a potential market rate housing project itself. The demand for market rate housing is there. It's very strong. They have not moved forward with any sort of repair, rehab of the property itself. They've engaged a historical consulting firm of McRosty, who is handling the filing of the applications for the state and historic tax credits. I'm working with them on securing the HDIP tax credits and the home funds. And right now, their project schedule has them probably starting the project sometime in August or September of 2021. Once again, I think this project is something that represents a pretty significant private investment by the owners, acknowledgement and investment by both the federal and the state historic registers and the state historic tax credit, the federal historic tax credits, CDA funding in the form of home funding, and also helps to stabilize that neighborhood. And failure to actually move forward with this project may result in the project having some other use, which may not as be conducive. And I think it's something that we want to see if we can move forward and preserve this building in its glory. I've been in the building many times. The woodwork in there is absolutely outstanding. It's a little chopped up in terms of some of the false walls they put up over the years. But the building itself is solid. It's got a tremendous street appeal, curb appeal. When you look at it from Eastern Avenue, it's one of the last Notre Dame buildings to actually be preserved. Obviously we lost the church years ago, but this building of itself stands on its own, and I think will be a very, very valuable asset to the city moving forward. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll open it up to questions. Christine?
Yeah, so Ken, are you able to get any kind of a breakdown, like a financial breakdown? Because basically we just have something that says, it's going to cost $300,000, but there's no actual breakdown of anything. So is that something you can get to us?
So the overall cost of the elevator is going to be $300,000, from soup to nuts. The $100,000 would be applied to the elevator and specific to the elevator cost. So essentially, you're just what we'd be doing is funding a portion of the overall elevator equipment and installation.
Right,
Okay,
but
so
one
then-
of the things that we always ask for is the financial details of how that's gonna work out, and so
Yeah,
that's.
so this is always a confusing question for these types of developments, right? So unlike some of the other projects that you've discussed here, a lot of these projects are, a roof, or it's, it may be something else according for a building repointing or something else. This is part of an overall building budget, right? So for the budget for the elevator, they've actually budgeted about 300,000 for that. Of that 300,000, 100,000 gets applied towards the installation and the purchase of the equipment that'll be going there. And then that 300,000 is part of the larger $4.5 million project itself. So it's, I'll try to get you anything. Need some definitive direction as to what you're actually looking for.
Okay. Excuse me. Vic, any questions? Go back to Vic. Alex, any questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could provide some details on what type of historic preservation work was being done at the property and if it was going to adhere to Secretary of Interior standards.
Yeah, by virtue of the securement of the federal tax credits, it has to adhere to the standards. So you cannot get federal tax credits or state tax credits unless you adhere to the Department of Interior standards, as well as the Massachusetts Historic Commission standards. Typically, those standards are one in and of the same. And typically, the way those tax credits are allocated is that a certain percentage of those qualified expenses are eligible for tax credits. So, and then let's say, for instance, I'm just arbitrarily picking out the number. Let's say that the collective amount of tax credit appropriation for this project is, I don't know, $2.1 million. Again, it's just an arbitrary number. Typically what happens is the developer secures those tax credits and then sells them off into the private market and generates the funding for the project. Right now, state tax credits are selling for 88 cents on the dollar and federal tax credits are selling for 84 cents on the dollar. At the end of the project, before you can actually sell these tax credits off, the architect has to certify that the qualified expenses are in keeping with the National Park Service and Department of Interior standards, the Massachusetts Historic Commission standards, and then there's going to be an overall independent cost allocation of those qualified expenditures. So that when the people are buying them, they know that the tax credits are validated by third parties.
Excellent. Could you just kind of describe how the property is going to be converted to the 14 units?
Yeah, so essentially what you're looking at is residential on the first floor up to the fourth floor. You're looking at approximately right now, we are looking at, let's see, 4 2-bedrooms, 8 1-bedrooms, and 2 large studios. The basement area will not be used for any residential. That'll probably be laundry room. It'll be, even though the basement is it's very deep and it's very high. It's not really conducive. You could potentially put a couple of apartments down there, but they're going to stay away from that and just keep all the residential on the upper levels of the building as opposed to the basement. So the basement becomes a laundry room, a storage area. You could have a small workout room there. All parking will be off-street parking so that there's no, any sort of additional impact upon the neighborhood there. So again, they're trying to keep everything as tight as possible so that everything is within their property boundaries as opposed to being on the street.
Thank you.
All right. Vic, did you have any questions?
No, I'm gonna wait on that one.
Okay. John Ferrer, any questions?
Yeah. Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Hey, John, how you doing?
I know you mentioned the interior woodwork was in great shape and it was pretty pristine. How much of that are we looking at reusing I know that you're gonna be cutting it up a little bit. Are we looking at reusing a lot of that interior woodwork?
Yeah, they're gonna try to use as, repurpose and reutilize as much as possible. There's also when you walk into the first floor of the building, on your left-hand side, there's this beautifully handcrafted stairwell that takes you from the first level up to the third level. That's gonna all remain, that's gonna be redone, it's gonna be rehab. You're gonna have to be a little careful on fire code protection there because of, the way the fire code regulations are. But they're gonna be able to save as much of this building as possible. Obviously, it helps them from a cost perspective, but it also helps them with the allocation of the tax credits as well.
Okay, thank you.
Caroline, any questions?
So I just wanted to clarify that the 100,000 is part of that 300,000 for the elevator, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so it doesn't actually apply to any of the, the woodwork or the architecture of the building, just the elevator, right?
Yeah, well, it's part of the overall project itself. In this case, the elevator, the cost of the application is applied to the elevator because the elevator is a necessary component to bring the people from the first level up to the upper levels for residential purposes. So we could have applied it to windows, we could have applied it to everything else, but the elevator itself seemed to have the most. $100,000 wouldn't have got you all the windows, right? It probably would have got you a portion. The elevator helps service the entire building. It provides handicap accessibility to the upper floors and also provides, access to the upper floors for residential use along with the primary stairwell.
Okay, thank you.
So Ken, what they're trying to say is, I guess that 100,000 is being allocated to that line item, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. If we were to accept this proposal, we would, in the grant, we would put the money going directly to the elevator. They could use it on nothing else, so that would.
That's fine, and like I said, we're fully comfortable with you guys had a big discussion the other night on permanent and temporary deed restrictions, and we'd be willing to take a temporary deed restriction on that, because I guess the permanent ones, you need a bunch of other approvals from the state and everything else, but however you guys want to do it, we'll certainly accommodate the deed restriction on it without any hesitancy.
Okay. Paul Machado, any questions?
No, thank you. No question. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, I guess that's it, Ken. Thanks.
John, I have another question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Ken,
Yes.
so just curious, because I'm just trying to figure the layout. So it looks like the parking is, so if you're facing the building, the parking is gonna go up on the left-hand side of the building? Like if you're facing the front, the parking's to the left?
The left rear portion, correct. So you'd come into the parking off of the side street, which is what St. Joseph Street, I forget what the side street is there.
Yep.
That's how you would access the parking. So there'd be no curb cuts along Eastern Avenue. All parking would be, reached through the side street.
Oh, okay, because it looked like in the drawing, there was something about a shared driveway between that building and 555, but I don't remember ever seeing a driveway there.
No, I think there's a walkway, but it's not a driveway.
Okay.
Is 555 the other building on the site?
Yeah, it's the building to the left of it.
Yeah, no, there's no driveway there. I think that's a big walkway.
Okay, that's what I thought, but it looked like it said something about a shared driveway, so I was just trying to figure how that laid out.
No, and they will actually, there was at one point when they first did this, they might have been sharing the driveway with the church in the back, but now they redesigned it, so just from an indemnification liability standpoint, they will have their own access, which will be adjacent to where the church is, but everything will be on their property.
Okay, they don't own the property to the left, correct? That's somebody else owns that?
No, they don't. That's the property that, that has already been purchased. I think that's something that, everybody in the city should keep an eye on, so it hopefully becomes a productive use and is conducive to other uses that are close to or surrounding uses there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any last questions or all set?
They're also, just by chance, they're willing to put a plaque on the building as well to acknowledge the architect. because I think, Mr. Deschamps, it's one of these things where he's another one of these city's best kept secrets, so he fully understands the impact he's had on this city in terms of architectural. They're willing to do that, and obviously, anything that the CPC would like to see is part of that as well.
Thank you,
Yeah, if
Ken.
anybody on here has any, a few extra minutes and they have time, look up the architect, because it really, I didn't know all that much about him, and I looked it up, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I looked it up for about an hour, just finding all this really cool stuff. So,
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story.
yeah.
Good. Thanks. All right. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you all.
Next on the list is the Dr. Fisk House, Jim Sewell from the Preservation Society. They're restoring 13 windows, 2 basement windows, shutters, the portico roof. They're requesting $60,000. In the past, they've had $150,000 for acquisition of the property, and they did $69,000 for condition report windows and construction. So Jim?
Hey, everybody. If you've probably read the application already, we're focusing specifically on the front facade of the house. We're a nonprofit board, all volunteer. There's no one on our board who, nor even our director, who is compensated in any way. It's been an impressive project, largely and thanks to CPA. We also had received grants in the past from Bristol County Savings Bank and Bay Coast to help with the projects. So we have a couple more projects for the future, but right now what we want to focus on is this front exterior facade. And I think it works in perfectly with what Stuart was mentioning the other day. This is about the public benefit, public good. Very historical property, as you probably have all read the Form B, and its involvement as an underground railroad site, one of about 6 in the city. The only one of the 6 that will have a preservation restriction deed. It will be saved. If I can answer any questions, shoot.
Now, Jim, does that include painting the front of the house?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So that's going to do the windows. Okay. All right.
This will be restoring windows. Wherever the windows can be repaired and restored, they will be. They won't be replaced unless they're beyond repair. The fellow that we got the quote specifically for the windows is the same fellow who did the Lafayette Durfee House. So he's an expert. He's really phenomenal. It's actually very difficult to find someone in the field who does that level, that quality work that does meet Secretary of Interior standards.
Thanks. We'll open up for questions. Christine?
I have no questions right now, but I do want to commend Mr. Sewell and the Preservation Society for the work that they've done in this house, because I've been following the progress all along, and you guys put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it shows, and it's beautiful. So
thank you.
Ready? Vic?
Hey, same here. Just want to make sure that you guys are very commended for it. It's very upgraded. It's beautiful. Some of the places, the apartments in there. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Alex, I know you. Do you have any questions? I know you're there working, so.
Yeah, I'm a member of the board of directors of the Preservation Society, so I'm going to recuse myself for all deliberations.
All righty. John Ferrer?
Just one question. How many units are in there?
7. It had 10. And we actually reduced it from 10 to 7. Because
I'm counting the meters, I'm counting the electrical meters. I'm saying, wow.
Yes, yep. We felt that the overcrowding in the neighborhood wasn't good. We wanted to maintain the level of affordable housing in it that we could, but 10, it wasn't optimal for the building or the neighborhood, so we cut it back to 7.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Alrighty. Caroline?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Paul?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, Jim, thanks for giving us your views. I mean, the property looked good. I was out there Saturday. I mean, it's coming along nice. Can't wait till the front gets going.
Yeah, me,
Alrighty, so that then you can. Alrighty. So next on the agenda. I don't have anything else, Sandy. Am I missing anything on the agenda?
No, that was it. The next meeting will be March 15th at 6 o'clock via Zoom again. So you just need to make a motion to adjourn.
Alrighty, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Christine,
yes.
Victor,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
John Ferrer,
Yes.
Caroline,
Yes.
Paul Machado.
Yes.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. See you next week.
Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Night.